As I've discussed in several videos concerning Titan and Megamind as a whole at this point, one thing that can easily be seen on repeat viewings is just how much Hal Stewart's descent into villainy once he gets superpowers is foreshadowed. Whole articles have even been dedicated to pointing out all the little hints that he's not as great as Megamind seems to think he is. But one hint about his becoming a bad guy that I think is somewhat overlooked is Hal's feelings and general regard for Metro Man. Because when you really look at it, Hal honestly did not like him all that much. And today, I'd like to go over everything presented in the movie that seems to suggest that this was indeed the case. And once again, I have to give my obligatory spoiler warning, so if you haven't seen Megamind and don't want anything else ruined, you should not proceed with this video. This will be the only spoiler warning I'll be giving out. Alright, so to get one thing out of the way first, something that many people have pointed out in regards to the movie foreshadowing Hal's fate is that after he's knocked out by Minion right before he gets his superpowers, you can barely make out that the book he was reading is actually called Best Comic Book Villains Ever. Now, the people who point this out often argue that this shows that Hal is actually more interested in villains than heroes, and thus hints that he would be more likely to become a bad guy than a good guy. And while I won't argue that that is a clever detail, I don't know how much it actually hints at Hal's descent into villainy. Because, let's face it, everybody loves the villain in fictional mediums. Admit it. How many times have you heard someone say that they find the villain more interesting than the hero? Or that they even straight up love watching the villain more than any other character? People say that all the time. As I've even said in countless other videos, people just love the villain, and that's the simple reality of it. So my point is, I don't really know how much Hal reading that book would really indicate that he was doomed to become a villain, considering how many perfectly good people might also read that same book just because they like fictional villains, but would never want to be one themselves. Heck, even I've read stuff very similar to that book, and I have absolutely no desire to be a bad guy. So basically, that book certainly indicates that Hal had a thing for comic book villains, yes, but I don't know how much it indicates that he wanted to be one. But to get back on to the topic of this video, one thing that clearly does indicate is that Hal's got a bigger interest in villains than in heroes. Though, as I also pointed out in another video, his initial reaction to realizing he was going to become a hero does seem to show that he wasn't opposed to being a superhero, but at the same time, he does also later admit he was mostly doing it just to get Roxanne's attention. But I'm getting off topic again. Let me try to get back on track here. Alright. So the point is that all of this simply proves that Hal had something of a penchant for supervillains, but that alone obviously doesn't prove anything for his feelings on Metro Man. However, if you look at his very first scene, he kind of makes it clear right off the bat that he doesn't really care for him, especially to the extent that Roxanne does. He even dismisses her heartfelt speech on everything she believes he represents until he's told that she wrote it herself. Now, the reason he gives for feeling this way is because Metro Man is always letting Roxanne be kidnapped, and further claims that if he were a superhero, he wouldn't let Megamind imprison her all the time. Which is partially true, anyway. But the point is, whether or not he's being entirely truthful, he still plainly states that he doesn't think much of Metro City's favorite hero. But where this becomes even more apparent is in the aftermath of his supposed death. Because when Megamind takes over the city, Hal is shown to be smiling in oblivious curiosity while everybody around him is rightfully concerned about what on earth is going to happen now that he's gone. And this is only taken a step further when he tries to invite Roxanne to a party, despite her still being in obvious mourning over Metro Man's death and the city is falling apart. But as far as Hal is concerned, Metro Man meant nothing to him, and he still has a job and place to live. So from his perspective, life is good. But frankly, his dislike of Metro Man may have just been his downfall, because if he had actually cared about her feelings and shown sympathy and comfort for Roxanne's pain, instead of being a creep and inviting her to a party, maybe she would have viewed him in a different light. And finally, there's of course the moment after Megamind traps him in the copper ball and starts bragging about he'll never get out, only for Hal to immediately smash through it while shouting, "You should stop comparing me to Metro Man!" and quickly gets hostile with anyone after that who tries to draw any parallels between the two. Though at that point Megamind had pretty much already pushed him off the deep end, so that could have been part of the reason for that. And his fear of him supposedly returning at the climax obviously comes from being confronted by a man with all his powers and having much more experience using them and rightfully knowing to run instead of trying to fight him and painfully losing. So in that case, his reaction is perfectly understandable, as any smart person would have the same reaction. Now, once again, why Hal would have such a dislike for the man that, as far as anybody knew, was pretty much single-handedly keeping the city safe from an evil supervillain is never fully explained beyond what he claims to Roxanne at the beginning of the movie. But if you look at everything just a little bit closer, one might be able to find a potential answer. Because once again, the book he's reading and his chat with Megamind before everything goes down the drain could actually provide some pretty big clues. Because for one thing, Hal sees no benefit to helping people if he can't gain anything from it. Even when Roxanne tries to infiltrate Megamind's secret hideout, Hal is extremely reluctant to go along with it and only does so because Roxanne insists on it and he wants to get on her good side. And because Metro Man and other heroes do exactly that, help others seemingly without benefit to themselves, Hal simply views them as show-offy fools. Now again, there's no way to actually prove that for certain, but consider this. Hal does outright say that being a hero is for losers, and I don't think he just formed that opinion on the fly. And there's also his infamous line, "Chicks don't like bouncy houses, they like clowns." Now where would Hal get such a stupid notion like that from? Well, it could just be that he's an idiot, or it could be that he's actually taken notice of Roxanne's devotion to Metro Man's values. And what does he view heroes as? Losers, fools, and clowns. Now, I'm not saying that's why he drew that conclusion, or that that's what the writers were going for, but that's just some food for thought. So, in the end, while many theories can be put forth, there's really no way to know for absolute certain why Hal didn't really like Metro Man. The fact that he didn't like him, however, is made pretty obvious. But on the flip side, despite his apparent like of villains, he didn't really seem to care much for Megamind either. He shows anger at his kidnapping Roxanne, is deathly afraid of him in his presence, melts a replica of his face without a second thought, and, of course, tries repeatedly to kill him once he realizes that he tricked him. Really, The only time he's actually shown to react to him in a positive light is when he's trying to persuade him to become his partner, and that's mainly because he believes that teaming up could work to his own benefit. So the point is, while he may not have liked Metro Man, it's also pretty clear that he was no fan of Megamind either. Now again, there is his lack of concern when he takes over the city, but I believe that has a lot more to do with it not affecting Hal personally than anything having to do with Megamind himself. Alright, so long story short, there's 100 different reasons, and I'm pretty sure I've stated them all at one point or another, why Hal Stewart was frankly the worst choice possible to be a replacement for Metro Man, and Hal's clear dislike of the hero is only one of them. Now, once again, why he felt that way about him is never fully stated. It could be that he thought of him as a fool, a loser, a show-off, or any number of other things. But at the same time, it was that inability to have respect and see the true benefits that come with being a hero that ultimately led to his own downfall. Okay, I think I've stated my case for long enough. So now I'd like to hear what you guys think. Why do you believe that Hal didn't like Metro Man in Megamind? And how much do you believe it led to his descent into villainy? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, you don't have to agree with anything in this video if you don't want to. You are just as entitled to your own opinion here as I am or anybody else, and nobody can tell you you're wrong for feeling that way. And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate all of it, and I hope to see you all next time.